Hey everybody, welcome to Now We Adventure. We're going to be hitting Boston's Back Bay today. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's November, but it's warm. Who would have thunk it? So we're going to be zigzagging back and forth through the Back Bay so you can see the whole thing. This is a really nice part of Boston. Lots of great shops, lots of great walking. You're going to see the boulevards are laid out kind of like Paris. Boston was in like a Parisian phase when they did this. So that's the kind of feel. And I think we're even going to make it to Fenway Park. So this will be a fun adventure. Let's see if we can do it. We are starting
where you can park. Here we are at the Alewife train station. They have a giant parking garage, and parking is only $9 a day on the weekdays.
$5 on the weekends.
So yeah, pretty cheap parking for Boston, and this has really, really good bike connection. We're going to be showing you that in just a couple seconds. So we're going to be riding into Beacon Hill, a place which is usually not so easy in park.
This is actually November right now, and we're getting a 60-degree day. So hopefully we'll need all this extra gear we brought, but we're bringing it just to be safe.
So if you're wondering about those little cat ear things I'm wearing, you've seen those before. Those keep the wind out of your ears, and it was a little nippy, so it was nice. I recommend it. You do look weird, but they're really comfy.
And you can see how far up we had to park in Alewife parking lot just to find a parking space. And that's because it was on a weekday, so all of these people are working in Boston. They usually drive in from elsewhere and then take the T on their way in.
So just in case you happen to bike into the city and then don't want to bike around the city, here's a good option for you. In the car parking lot, there is also a bike parking lot, so you can store your bike in a fairly secure way. It has video surveillance. You have to register a Charlie card in order to get into that parking garage. That's why I'm not in there.
Yeah, we'll show you a picture of the sign so you know how to sign up if you want to do it.
Look at the little ducklings.
Yeah, so right now we're heading from Alewife onto the Alewife Linear Park, which leads straight onto the Somerville Community Path. This is a great way to get into Boston from Alewife.
You've seen us do the opposite trip from the Science Museum out. This is going in.
And I think that this is just a wonderful little hack to be able to see Boston for very little money. E-bike your way in, and you don't have to pay $60 to park your car. You can just pay $3 on the weekend.
Now, on the way in, you might want to stop at Davis Square, which is coming up for us here, because there's plenty of things to do here, and there's also the tea stop there. So you could, have lunch or dinner. So always be thinking about these little side stops.
Right. And of course, you could also just take the T into Boston like all the commuters do. But we find it's more fun to have the e-bike, because then you can e-bike around the city.
Here's Davis Square.
Here's Davis Square. You kind of cut through Davis Square, and then it gets you all the way in. In this episode, we've slowed down the time-lapse photography. It used to be 10 times the normal speed. Right now we're doing 5 times. And this just because we're in a city and we're not trying to make up ground, we're actually trying to see. This allows us to see a little bit more of what we're doing. And I liked the 5 times speed.
I do too.
And let us know in the comments below if you like the 5 times speed. I think it allows you to see a little bit more of the surroundings.
More detail.
And not just kind of have a time warp along some kind of path.
But thank goodness for the Somerville Community Path, because if it weren't for this path, there really would be no easy way in and out of the city. So it's so great that this just opened. You really should take advantage of it.
Yeah, if you haven't tested it out before, you could walk it. You could take a scooter. It's really quite an accessible path. I had a great time riding it in.
There's a few hills on this path that if you didn't have an e-bike, you'd be feeling it more. I just love that with our e-bikes today, we're going to be going up a lot of hills, and it just wouldn't be possible, at least for me, without an e-bike.
And we're zooming down into Cambridge here. The way that we travel into the city takes us right past the Museum of Science. And so, yeah, this beautiful park, which abuts the path, is a nice way, to have a little stop if you need one. But I just love this way into the city. It's just so much more welcoming than Route 93. And here we're passing by the Museum of Science. This is also where you could pick up a duck boat if you wanted to have a duck boat tour, although I think a bike tour of Boston is just as pretty and a heck of a lot less expensive. We're riding along the Esplanade now. This is on the south side of the Charles River. And we're making our way to one of Boston's famous landmarks that you may have seen if you watch the Boston fireworks.
All right, so we just rode in from Alewife, and that was awesome. That was like, 20-minute ride, depending on your speed. We're now here on the Charles River at the Esplanade at the Hat Shell, which is like a famous Boston landmark. So if you're going to do this ride, I really recommend that this is a wonderful path for bike riding.
I just want to say, Jesse, you got some amazing shots of Boston that I have never seen before with your drone. First of all, the weather was perfect for it, the lighting, but the fact that you got some angles of Boston that I don't think I've ever seen, it's just incredible because I love watching all sorts of things about Boston. So for you to have captured this, I feel like it's because with the airport, you're not supposed to fly a typical drone. Just for those of you out there who are like, you flew a drone, this is not technically a drone. It is actually 249 grams, so it's small enough that it doesn't fit that category, and that's how we got these shots for you.
But the next place we're going to go with you is we're going to start walking this way so you can see. We're going to head over to, I don't know, is this famous in your millennium? The Cheers bar from the show Cheers? Cheers! Right, so we're going to go see Cheers. You have to if you're in Boston. We're going to go over the Arthur Fiedler footbridge. And then we're going to show you kind of the lower part of Beacon Hill first. So that's our next part of our adventures. Fun stuff.
Arthur Fiedler used to be the conductor of the Pops. He was a much beloved person, and so there's the Arthur Fiedler footbridge.
I feel like it was brown when I was a kid.
It was painted brown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they painted it white.
I kind of like the white.
Yeah.
I liked the brown, too, because it was classic. But
It does the trick. So now we're in the low part of Beacon Hill, and that in front of us is Cheers.
See, I tend bar back home in Indiana. Well, it's not a bar exactly. It's more like a pigsty with the jukebox. If we had a jukebox.
All right, so I wouldn't recommend going there for lunch or anything. It's, a little tourist trappy. But here we're on the low side of the hill, beautiful buildings.
And had to squeeze past this FedEx truck. Boston has some pretty tight streets. And you can see, once again, our med kit gets in the way.
So I wanted to take you onto a part of Beacon Hill that's not the hill. This is just off of, just a block away from where we were over at the Esplanade. It's the kind of the flat part to the south of Charles Street. But it's kind of a nice quiet part of the hill that's fun to bike around as well. So we're going to just kind of bike around here, see some of the sights, and then we're going to head over to Charles Street, which is kind of the famous Beacon Hill Street.
So we're about to go through a little alley. I recommend going through the alleys in Beacon Hill and Back Bay when you can, because they're really cool. And they're just a cool way to see parts of the city that probably no one's really seen. So we're a little bit of Charles Street here. It was just too busy for us that day to show you a lot of it. Now we're in the Boston Common going up the hill towards the State House on our left. You'll see the Gold Dome in a second.
All right, so we're in the Boston Common. This is the oldest public park in America. You have to stop here if you're going to come here, right? And then what's behind us?
That is the State House. The gold dome is actually covered in gold leaf, so it's very, very thin. I think it's, enough? It's like a thumbnail's worth of gold. It's not that much, but it is still really expensive to refoil it every 10 years or so?
Yeah, I think it's about every 10, 15 years. The building was designed by Bulfinch, who was the first American-born architect. Real classy building. You used to be able to go in it really easily, but then after, 9/11, you really couldn't. I think there still are some tours. Might be a fun thing to do if the weather's not so great. But we are getting the weather gods on our side today because today is November, 7th or something, and the weather is beautiful. So we're going to ride around the Common a little bit, show you the Frog Pond and some other cool spots, and then we're going to head back to Charles Street.
Yeah, the Frog Pond is cool. In the winter, you can ice skate on it. And in the summer, you can go there and get cooled off. There's a little concession stand, fun place for the kids to cool off in the city.
It's not really a pool. You can't really swim in it. It's
No, you just get wet.
3 to 5 inches deep, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's usually a fountain in the middle.
This is where basically the cows would graze in Boston. So this was, I think, probably where they watered themselves.
Yep. And now we get to go splash around there. And in the summer, you will also sometimes see a carousel set up as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice little place to stop, and there's, usually some concessions, something to eat.
This was modeled after Central Park in New York or some of the Parisian parks. So if you see in this drone shot, it looks like almost like you're in New York in that Central Park, except we're so small compared to New York.
It's like a mini Central Park,
Right.
Which is nice because it's smaller. It's a little bit less scary. I mean, I've been to Central Park a couple times, but this is
You can always see your way out of this park.
That's true.
It's only a few blocks wide.
Yep.
We're now approaching Boston's Park Street Station. This is kind of a historic place where you've got Old North Church and you've got the State House up here. We're going to walk up the stairs here. And unfortunately, going in the State House, like I said, is not that easy now that it's, all securityed up. We're going down the hill now on the other side.
And we get to see basically the whole State House. It's quite a big
Yeah,
building.
we're going around the State House right now, actually. Yeah.
I mean, if you got to run a state, you got to have a big building to keep all the people who run the state in it.
Yeah, Boston's kind of unique that it's the capital city and also it's the well-known city. In a lot of states, you've got like Sacramento, which is the capital of California.
Or Albany in New York.
Exactly.
Mount Vernon Street is definitely a spot I think you should try and hit on your trip because it's a beautiful street. And then right off of Mount Vernon is Lewisburg Square, where we are now. Beautiful little spot in Boston, a little hidden gem. You get beautiful views of the Charles River if you can see between the trees. And this is just kind of the quintessential old Beacon Hill, let me say.
Yeah, and I would also say, like quintessential Beacon Hill, you do not want to drive this in a car. It's really, really, really tight, and
Not all parking. It's almost all residential parking, so it's hard to find parking places. That's why bikes are really nice for that.
and you're not going to even have any room but hop out and take a picture. I mean, the whole square is basically full. And but I mean, look at us.
Exactly.
Just park the bikes.
And then I think your next stop would definitely be going down to maybe Charles Street, which is where we're going for lunch. So Charles Street has a lot of great restaurants on it, and definitely make that part of your trip if you can, is to enjoy just relaxing and sitting down for a while. Bring a bike lock with you.
You did, right?
Okay. Because you're going to want to lock up your bike somewhere.
And just a little secret there, we were actually standing in front of Senator Kerry's house. Don't want to dox him or anything, but I'm sure it's public information.
He usually gave out the good candy bars at at Halloween.
Yeah, if you can be in Boston for Halloween, Beacon Hill is amazing.
Yeah.
Crowded, but amazing.
Yep.
Now we're going back down Chestnut Street towards, we take a little break here.
So as you're riding around Mount Vernon Street, if you take a left or a right on South Russell, where we are now, there's this little alley called Acorn Street. It's got the cobblestones. It's one of the most famous streets on Beacon Hill. I don't think you're supposed to film on it, but right now I think they're doing a film shoot right now. You're going to see some B-roll of that. I think you'll recognize it because it's probably been everywhere in the travel books and stuff. So probably worth taking a little peek over here. But one thing I want to mention is, again, having bikes. If we were in a car right now and we wanted to stop and take a look, we'd have to like double park or get beeped at. Here we just pull over, find a little spot, and we're good.
Yeah, right from the live view. Oh. We hear sirens, we'll move. All right, it's pretty easy.
Sorry about that. We're on West Cedar Street. If you're looking for Acorn, it's off of West Cedar.
But yeah, I mean, you've probably seen this in catalogs and stamps and stuff. It's a very beautiful looking street for sure.
Okay, now we're going back across the Arthur Fiedler Bridge back to the Esplanade because we're going to take you along the Esplanade west on the southern side of the Charles River. Charles River, of course, named after King Charles. And we're going to be going west along Back Bay.
And why is it called Back Bay?
I'll tell you.
This is the part of Boston that used to be behind me. It was Beacon Hill, which was 2 times bigger, 3 times bigger, right?
Okay.
And then it was just water, but they needed land, so they took Beacon Hill, and by hand, they filled this all in.
Oh, so the dirt that was Beacon Hill is Back Bay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not
and
the
that's
people.
why it's called Back Bay. Normally a bay is a water feature.
Exactly.
Not somewhere where you can walk.
Exactly.
Or bike, for that matter.
So this is a route I used to ride on my bike all the time when I was a kid. I remember 10 years old. This was my freedom from my family. I could just go ride along. It's so safe. It's so beautiful. And it's so flat. So wonderful place to do dog walking, strollering, whatever you want to do in the city. I think this is one of the most beautiful parts of the city.
And here we're riding it in, I believe, November. So it was, not as beautiful as it is during the summer when there's a lot more green and a lot more flowers and stuff.
Now we're stopping at the Mass Ave Bridge because we're at the end kind of Back Bay, and we're going to go a different direction for you. We're going to take you down these alleys on the other side of Storrow Drive.
And for me, this was so iconic. I mean, I've driven down Sturrow Drive so many times as a kid, and you look out the window and you see these cool brick buildings with the copper bump outs. I absolutely love all of these buildings. So to be just yet another step closer to them was so fun for me.
Yeah, and if you're in a car, I don't think you'd really feel comfortable doing it because these are people's private residences.
And there's tons of speed bumps and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think this was actually a really great part of the biking experience to me.
Now we're going to take a right and take you west again on Beacon Street, the first block of which there is no bike path. But then, starting at Berkeley Street, you get a bike path.
And so you might be saying, didn't we just go this way, but several hundred feet to the right? And you're correct. So we had just gone down the Esplanade and then come back up, and now we're going back down Back Bay yet again, just to give you a real good sense of the city.
Yeah, because, Back Bay is a beautiful spot to vacation to, but it's tiring. There's a lot of blocks here if you're going to walk it, and so e-biking is a great way to take in a lot of it in a shorter amount of time. Now we're approaching Kenmore Square, and this is where Fenway Park is. Look to your left, you'll see the lights of Fenway Park.
So if you're feeling like a Fenway Frank about now, it's because we're Fenway Park. So it's not technically the Back Bay. We're in the Fenway now. That's why it's called Fenway Park. But yeah, if you're in Back Bay, I feel like you should just try and go to a Red Sox game.
Good luck.
Good luck getting tickets.
But yeah, it's fun to be here, especially when there's a game going on. Of course, there isn't one going on at this exact moment. Otherwise, it would be a madhouse, right? It'd be an absolute madhouse. So it's nice to come when it's a bit less crowded, and just to get to see the park and to see the area is really nice.
But you can see that if you were driving right now in a car, there'd be no way for you to really stop and take a walk around. Whereas with bikes, again, you can just lock them up and go for a walk and go and get a beer and have some peanuts.
Right, we're parked illegally in this parking lot, and no one's yelling at us because they're bikes. Yeah.
All right, so we're headed now back to the Back Bay. We're going to do Marlborough Street. Let's check it out.
As you can see here, the iconic Citgo sign is straight ahead. That lights up at night.
And it's not on top of Fenway Park, as so many people think that it is. It's on a building a little ways away.
Kenmore Square is tough to get through. Even though there's a bike path, you can see a lot of people were parking in our lane.
Yep. And you can see how the paint disappears and comes back. And
now, Marlborough Street here is a quiet street. There's no bike path, but it's quiet enough so that I think it's safe to drive.
Yeah, and most of the crossings here are stop sign. So if you're a bike, you pretty much you might stop, but you can kind of just look left, look right, and continue your journey. And yeah, it was a really quiet street, which is nice because I guess Sturrow Drive and Com Ave take up most of the traffic.
My dad used to do a lot of construction on these streets, so a lot of these buildings I've been in a lot.
Mm-hmm. What are most of these buildings, by the way?
A lot of them are condos now, but they used to be single residences before.
Interesting.
Single family. Now we're taking a westerly route on Com Ave, which is beautiful. It's kind of made after the Parisian boulevards with this middle walking section. I would recommend walking down it. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, the biking was fine. I mean, you do have some cars that are going to pass you on the right as you bike. Either way you go, you'll have cars passing you on the right. But the walk is so much nicer. There's lots of different memorials and statues. You get a little bit of history and a little bit of art and stuff. I like walking down Com Ave.
Now we're on Mass Ave and we're taking a left down Newbury Street, which is the kind of shopping street with lots of restaurants and beautiful boutique shops. But it's so crowded for us. Look, as bikes, it just sucks.
And we're going the wrong way, which definitely didn't help either.
But look at all the construction. It's just really tough.
The construction, the delivery vehicles, the people who are triple parked, it's just insane.
Yeah.
It was
It's not even
fun.
as fun as a pedestrian anymore. I think just because there's so much going on. It used to be quieter.
I think that it would be much more fun to walk down Newbury Street. So, I mean, what you could do would be to park at the Common, walk down Com Ave, and then walk back on Newbury Street to kind of get that whole flair without having to bike both, which aren't as good as the walking, honestly.
And we decide not to take a right and go up Boylston here. We're going to just take a left and go down around the public garden.
And really nice bike path around the public garden and around the Common. It's nice and wide. It's protected from the road with parking. So that made it it was a welcome break after having to battle through Newbury Street.
So now we're going to head back over the Arthur Fiedler Bridge, and, we'll show you the next part of the adventure.
So back past the Hatch Hill and
Oh, one of our favorite spots, Jesse.
yes, the community boating. This is where both Zach and I learned how to sail
At about the same ages.
at about the same ages. So I learned when I was, I believe,
I learned
12,
Yeah, I
13?
learned when I was 10. It's the only thing I can remember as a kid that you could do that adults couldn't. If you learn to sail, you can be the captain of a boat and tell adults what to do.
Exactly.
And it's only $1 for the summer if you are a kid. So if you're going to be in Boston with your kids, you might want to sign them up for a week of sailing lessons.
It takes at least 5 days to learn how to sail, and then it takes at least 3 days after that to get your helmsman.
I think Jesse got it the fastest.
I got it in 8 days because I was fast and I loved sailing.
But then you get to sail on the Charles River.
All by yourself if you're a kid, which is really, really fun.
It's a magical experience.
It's
It really
a
is.
magical experience.
And they've been doing it for decades.
I mean, I don't know who's going to take a Boston trip that's going to be longer than
Well, if you're there for a couple
week.
weeks or more. Another little hack is you could sign up, and then even if you don't fully learn to sail, other people can take you out as their guest.
That's true.
You know, so just be really nice to people. And
And I think one time we went down there as adults and wished to sail, and I think it wasn't outrageously expensive to take a boat out.
Right.
But you will have to know how to sail because otherwise you're not going to be able to get back. But what a wonderful little piece of Boston.
so now we're going to cut across this other little pedestrian bridge, which is so cool.
This is a
It was
new
under
one.
construction for a long time.
Yes. And this takes us right to the entrance of Charles Street.
And so now we're on Cambridge Street, which is not fun to bike ride.
No, and here's the thing, on Google Maps, it shows a nice green line. Now, to be fair, it shows it on the other side of the street, which if you're not zoomed in all the way, you won't see it. So on the way back on Cambridge Street, it's a lot nicer.
So now we're on Myrtle Street on Beacon Hill. It's a really cool street because you're at the top of a hill. So we're going down the hill, and then we're going to go down half a block, and we're going to go up the hill, really steep.
This is one of the I think the steepest street in Boston. You can see the camera shaking as I'm pedaling as hard as I can. The motor helped out a lot, though.
So we're near the top of Beacon Hill. This is Myrtle Street, and this street is very long. And do you know why that is? No. Do you remember when we were over near the Constitution, we saw that really long building where they made rope? Yes. Well, Boston needed a lot of rope, and this was actually a rope block. You don't see it anymore because the building's gone, but there was a long building, and you had to make it as long as you need to make the rope because you couldn't splice it. So I forget how long it was, but it was really long, and that's where you made all your ropes for all chips.
Oh, wow. Yes, so that's why it's that long. And I mean, really cool view. I don't think we've had such a view.
Well, that's another point, is that this street is one way that way. So you've never been able to look that way when you drive on it. And so I feel like that's another advantage of e-bikes. You can go any direction you want, really. I mean, yeah, maybe not really, but you can. Yeah. And also, we just passed a construction site, which would have screwed up our whole day if we were in a car. So these streets on Beacon Hill are all one way, going weird ways. Yes. On a bike, you can just kind of pick your route. So right, and turn around if you need to. It's a lot easier than with the car. But can I just talk about what we just did? You might have just seen that we went down a steep hill and up to the steepest hills on Beacon Hill. And we did it in like 30 seconds coming up. Yeah, I mean, we were going like 10, 15 miles an hour. And I mean, that's just impossible on a bike. And I can actually still speak. And that's because the motor did so much work for me. Yeah. And let you do something which I really don't think you can bike tour Beacon Hill.
No, you don't see them.
No, you don't even see Segway tours. Well, I was really unimpressed with Cambridge Street because Cambridge Street is, you know, a big street with hospitals and stuff on it. It has some of those rental bikes. But I didn't see any lane markings for bike paths, and it felt very sketchy. So I would just say stay away from Cambridge Street.
Which is annoying because it's marked green on the map, and you look, oh, perfect, we'll go down and we'll get all the way to Government Center. It's like, no, you're not going to. That's just really...
And the same thing with Charles Street. So, I mean, you can go around the public garden easily, but Charles Street, we haven't hit it today because it's not that safe.
Right. And I mean, you saw us fighting on Newbury Street. That was terrible.
Yeah, and then we gave up on Boylston. We were going to show that to you, but it was going to be like Newbury. It was going to be very difficult for us. So I feel like Marlborough and Beacon Street are your best bets in the Back Bay. Also Comm Ave. And I think that what's really interesting about the e-bikes is that there are so many great places to walk in Boston. It's such a walkable city. Yeah, lock up your bikes, go for a walk. I think that walk down Collin Ave is actually going to be more fun than biking down. Sure.
Now we get to get some of that energy back as we go down the hill. And we're going to be heading back to our original starting point at Alewife. So we're going to show you how that looks. And we'll speed it up a little bit here because we don't want to bore you, but it's good to see how things work if you're trying to do this trip for yourself. And again, what we just did today on this trip, I feel like you should spread across 2 or 3 different adventures if you really want to take in more of the city. If you're just doing what we're doing and just kind of getting your legs moving, then by all means, tackle it all.
Yeah, so we're just going to kind of zoom back along the way. You
A
saw
lot of it will look familiar.
Yep. And I don't know, this was a really cool way to see the city. Obviously, we just focused on the Back Bay and Beacon Hill, but you can check out lots of different places in Boston and basically take this path back. It's about 20-minute ride all the way to Alewife, where you're going to get that fairly cheap parking.
I really like this trip because we really got to focus on a certain area for the day. And I think we want to do more of those trips for you guys so that you can kind of feel like you were there in case you ever want to visit yourself.
And let us know what you think. We had such a great time showing this off to you. We'll see you again next time on Now We Adventure.